News Talk weather.
Thanks to Ryanair. Get on your bike to the Cycling World Champs in August with Ryanair's low-fare flights to Glasgow.
It will be a mild and muggy night with temperatures not falling below 11 to 15 degrees. Any lingering showers in the west and southwest will die out early on, leaving a mostly dry night with clear spells. There's a chance of further heavy showers on western fringes towards morning. Some patchy mist and fog will develop in a light variable breeze. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
The Newsround on Off the Ball.
With Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave for your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
This is News Talk.
Welcome along. Something of an eclectic offering this evening. We'll be over to Dan McDonnell in Athens, 2 days out from yet another one of those defining nights for Stephen Kenny. This one, though, does feel very significant, it has to be said. Bullfighting is not something we talk about in the show too often, but it is on the menu come 8 o'clock this evening. We'll be over to Spain. And then this hour, we are going to check in on the Tailteann Cup experience. So specifically, what do Carlo's Dara Foley and Offaly's Anton Sullivan make of life in the Tailteann Cup versus what was the bulk of their career without? So that's at 7:30. 53106 is the text number. You'll get us at Off the Ball on Twitter. Michael McCarthy here in studio. Hello.
Hey Joe, I'll do Athens, I think Madrid and the Midlands of Ireland all have in common.
Go on.
No, just
53106. We're also at Off the Ball on Twitter. Richie McCormack, hello to you.
Gentlemen, how are you?
Very well. So bullfighting, Richie. I don't know how much bullfighting talk you've
big fan
encountered in recent times. So interesting on a whole host of fronts. Just under 2% of Spaniards attended a bullfight in the 2021-2022 season, according to Culture Ministry statistics. Although that said, it is a big country and there were some 20,000 bull type events in 1 year. Not all of them are bull fights, but bulls involved fiestas. But interestingly, amongst the 2% that attended, teenagers aged 15 to 19 were the most populous group. So it's enjoying something of a rejuvenation amongst younger people in Spain. More so, it must be said, in rural areas as opposed to urban centres. But it had been in decline from about the 70s, when a lot of the big famous iconic bull rings were being shut down in the likes of Barcelona and Benidorm and Santa Cruz de Tenerife, and they've been reopened as shopping centres and nightclubs. So, you know, if you're in Benidorm in a nightclub, there's a chance it was once a bull ring. I hadn't realised in 2018 the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child said to Spain, can you stop showing children bullfights? And Spain said, no, we're still going to show them, because they are on, certainly when there's a right-leaning government in particular, they are on public television 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, very much there if you're flicking through the channels.
Maybe that's why the 15 to 19-year-olds want to go, a bit of rebellion.
Yeah, perhaps.
UN doesn't want us here, man.
So we're going to talk to a brilliant guest who is a freelance journalist over in Spain, and he'll explain to us the current place of bullfighting in Spanish culture.
Like 2%'s a lot in a country as big as Spain.
It's a lot, yeah.
You know, it's a lot of people.
Yeah. There was a great piece a couple of months ago in the Irish Examiner by Colin Greaves, who attended a bullfight. Now that lays it out in particularly grim form. I had obviously, I mean, we have a sense of Matador, red blanket, way, and you assume the bull probably dies, but you don't. I don't
think you think of it too much, really.
Maybe not, yeah. Well, so I hadn't realised just how regimented it is. I mean, this is like, there is the prelude, there is Act 1, 2 and 3, and it's all very defined. So in short, Colin Greaves' piece, he describes it brilliantly, and I won't labour the point here by reading all of this, but you know, bugle sounds, brass band enters, entourage, there are picadors on horseback, the parade crosses the arena, very theatrical fashion, bows in very exaggerated form to the dignitaries who return their respect with a wave, and then Act 1 starts, bull comes into the ring, booking powerful, 500 kilos of looming jeopardy, matadors tempt him with waved capes and then quickly retreat behind some barriers. This, writes Colin, is the only part of the game that the bull wins, and the victory lasts for barely a minute. So then what happens, and if you're squeamish and if you don't want to hear about all this, maybe flick away for about the next 40 seconds. Then what happens is the mounted horsemen await, the picador, Bull charges the horse. Horse, very skillfully, I'm sure, avoids Bull. But in the process, the reward for the Bull, writes Colm, is the sharp end of a lance to the shoulder. Then we have Act 2, sharp, barbed harpoons. At least 4 of them are driven into the Bull's neck. By now the Bull is bleeding heavily, fading energy, dripping scarlet and reddening the packed yellow sand beneath him. And then we're into Act 3. The Bull stands still now in the centre of the ring, tired, focusing only on his one remaining enemy, the Matador, who now emerges. He allows the Bull to pass close several times, but easily dances around him. The spectators thrill noisily. The Matador struts, the animal tires, his head a little heavier, a little closer to the ground. The final moments the Bull will see are thousands of white handkerchiefs waving in appreciation. The final emotion, if the Bull feels emotion, says the piece, will be loathing for the man before him, strutting dramatically, posing melodramatically, taunting, mocking, as he organises the final scenes in his 3-act Dance of Death. The Matador draws his sword, it's cold steel this time. The crowd silences, man lunges, and that is that for the Bull, which is torturous, really, and it's no surprise, obviously, that this is very contentious in Spain, and I think over 50% of Spanish people want it done away with. There are protests outside bull rings in Madrid, full of tourists as well. Obviously, it's a done thing for tourists. One interesting thing I hadn't realised is if the bull, I'm using the wrong terminology here, I'm sure, is seen to have fought bravely or earns a reprieve because of the performance, that bull never fights again. Not because it's some kind of reward for the bull, but because they don't want the bull to have learned lessons about what happens here and to be more dangerous for the Matador next time around. So it's horrific stuff. We'll talk to you in a bit more detail in the next hour. But you've been to one of these in your teenage years, I hadn't realised.
Yeah, on holidays when I was like 14, went to a bullfight. Hadn't like thought it through. It was me and my mum, and we went like scorching hot day in the bull ring, pageantry, circus, carnival style, volunteers from the crowd, little mini bulls running around, men on horseback, all fun and games. Good atmosphere, right? Bullfight starts. Again, all I really know is there's a main event here. There's going to be a full-on Matador. He's going to swing things. My closest encounter with a Matador before that was like the El Matador Tito Santana in wrestling in the 1990s. You know what I mean? I didn't know what it was, really.
Richie McCormack, loving that.
I know, yeah. It was for Richie. I said it for Richie.
I got that reference.
But this was... so here we go, here's the main event, and they do the woo. Next thing, there's a full-on spear in the animal's back. And you're like, oh, okay, right, a bit more graphic. I'm thinking, it's funny, it really registered me when you said the thing about kids, the UN and kids watching this, because I did feel like I wasn't equipped for it, even as a 14, 15-year-old, because it just went on, and the bull's energy fades. He has 4 or 5 spears sticking out of his back. He, in my opinion, watching it, wants to lie down and die at this stage. He certainly doesn't want to fight anymore. And he's being teased and, teased into continuing to fight by a kind of a performative Matador. And I'm just thinking, I am witnessing an animal being tortured to death. And they talk about the atmosphere changing. In my mind, in my mum's mind, everybody else around us is getting more and more excited. So again, I'll talk about it in a little bit more detail later on, and we'll get into it. But the maddest thing is, and they're talking about the kind of pageantry at the end and the gift you receive or whatever it was. I remember there was we just happened to be, of course, look at the Irish randomness. We're there sick. I'd say we're green, but everybody else around us is, and the animal is dead. And next thing, the Matador comes right over beside us, because it happened that whoever the local dignitary was sitting right beside us.
Okay.
So they came up to bow in front of this person, and she gave him a rose. And he accepted it, and this was all part of the pageantry. And I was going, God, this is not. Are you in any way? Are we the only 2 people looking at this animal in here who's been tortured to death right in front of our eyes? And we were. We were the only ones, and that was just a culture issue. And again, I don't mean to be, I'm not being all righteousness on this. Like, I do accept that you grow up with these things, you become a little bit immune to them, you don't see them for what they are, possibly, and maybe that's being a bit presumptuous on my part, but for me it was like I had no interest in seeing that. It's etched into my memory, Joe.
Yeah, I'll bet. Well, Guy Hedgecoe's on the way, so he'll talk about various aspects of this. It's interesting, even in Catalonia they banned this 10 years ago, and they did it under the kind of auspices of animal rights, but there was a degree of what is the most Spanish thing we can think of? Bullfighting. And so it's like, culturally, let's try and move away, but there's a big push now to get it back in Catalonia, so all that's going on as well. So that is on the way. After 8 o'clock, there is a text in from Eamon in Donegal. The Tailteann Cup or bullfighting, which is the more gruesome spectacle?
It's a good text.
To be fair, he says, I joke. Somebody says, I went to a bullfight a few years ago. It was the most gruesome thing I witnessed. At the end, the bull had about 7 spears in him before he bled to death. I would think there is a quotient of shell-shocked tourists walking out at times who think
do you know what, like, I mean, he's just described exactly what I'd said, and the text probably came in beforehand, but the spears in the back thing is like, as you're going, it's like, how many more of these are going to be sticking out of him? You know, the fight's got any sense of a contest is so long gone. You know, it's only kind of a pretend idea anyway, but it's so long gone, and you're like, this animal, and the worst part was he just kept walking over to the corner of the ring on his own and lying down.
Stop. Okay.
I can never forget it.
Yeah, well, that chat's on the way. It's interesting as well, so the Matadors are still kind of pretty famous and glamorous people, you know, and you'll see them in Ola when you buy the magazine. 100 grand a pop, Richie, per bullfight, and they'll have 40 fights a year, so it's big business for them still. You never had the pleasure, did you?
No, thankfully not. And after hearing what Mick has described there, I'm doubly grateful. It's not something that would ever, on a surface level, even appeal to me. And even listening to that is quite difficult to kind of comprehend the attraction of it.
I know.
And even in it's so choreographed. Even to come back to Mick's wrestling and analogy there with Tito Santana, like, it's so choreographed to the point that you know what's going to happen. So even if this is your thing, I don't know how it would garner repeat viewings.
Totally agree.
But underneath that all is just a disgusting nature.
I think the answer to that dispassionately is that it isn't about the contest, it is about the performance, and it is about the demonstration of it, and people do that with different skills and with different move sets, I would imagine, and everything like that. I would imagine they are judged by the way people watch it.
They are, because and we'll get into it later on, but it's not, for instance, like, is it a sport? Is it not? Is it art? So it's not written about in the sports pages, but it's like in the culture magazines alongside a review of the new play in Madrid. Like, you've got the theatre critic and the bullfighting critic who will review
the latest Matador.
Like, I don't know,
sensation.
Costumes good, stage presence good. I don't know what, bad, that kind of a thing. So that is on the way. I mean, it should be a very interesting conversation, I would think. We've Dan McDonald after 9, and we're talking Tailteann Cup this hour. We should get into the news round, Richie. It is, as ever, with thanks to Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition is available now. So it's that time of year again.
Oh, it is. Who's ready for some championship structures? The Heineken Champions Cup has a new pool format, and as expected, it will be 4 pools of 6. However, there's caveats galore. Among them, teams from each country will be kept apart in pool stage, with a maximum of 2 teams from the one league in a pool. So the URC size, for the most part, will be kept apart. Teams will have 4 pool fixtures against 4 different opponents, with 2 at home and 2 away. The top 4 in each pool will progress to the last 16, while the 5th place teams will parachute into the Challenge Cup knockout phase. Leinster are left hoping for a favour from La Rochelle if they're to be confirmed as one of the top seeds for next week's draw. As Ronan O'Gara's side are already guaranteed top seed status as defending champions, then Leinster, and not the top 14 finalists, Toulouse, will take the remaining top tier spot available. That's if La Rochelle win in Saturday's final.
I don't have a strong take on this just yet. The general refrain I saw from people on Twitter was not enough jeopardy in the group stages.
Nope.
4 of 6 go through. Is there a pool aside from the Munster hurling championship?
Which is still 3 of 5.
Is there a competition out there that's cutthroat enough for us?
Like, if there's this is the first year of the Munster Hurling Championship that's been brilliant, where 4 of the teams have performed to their level, as opposed to 3, and it's been straightforward. So even that, we need more jeopardy, Joe.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we'll talk about it in the next couple of days. I think the draw is next week, so maybe we'll get a sense then when we look at the groups and you say 4 from those 6. Oh, that works, or oh, that really doesn't work. That might be the best way time to judge it. Well, I mean, he's had an eventful 10 days. I suspect a lot of stress, and I by the way, I don't know what the medical issue is, but Jay Monaghan is a man who's come to the attention of the world in the last week or so, Rich, and not good news.
Could well be ingrown toenails for all we know, but under fire, Commissioner of the PGA Tour Jay Monaghan has stepped away from his day-to-day running of the group on health grounds. He is recuperating from a medical situation, they say, 1 week after the shock merger with the controversial Saudi-backed Live Golf. The tour said it would provide updates as appropriate.
We have a bumper US Open preview ready for you on Patreon via Golf Weekly if you want to get stuck into that.
I saw Pádraig Harrington said that, and this is, I love the US Open. I love when the US Open is unplayable. It doesn't sound like this is going to be, but it'll still be exciting.
Yes.
Pádraig Harrington said it's going to be one of the slowest rounds of golf ever played, and I'm like, if that's coming from Pádraig Harrington, I'm worried about this, especially with West Coast time, Joe.
Pace of play is going to be very slow. Just the nature of the course. There'll be lots of waiting, and there are in short, there are a bunch of drivable par 4s, for instance. Then you got to clear the green and go again, and all that kind of stuff. And it's wonderfully kind of quirky. It's going to be spectacularly interesting if you're into your golf, because the golfers that will have to make so many choices. It's not just a case of give me my driver 14 times and I'll play the par 3s. It will be really varied. Some players think you have to lay up on that par 4. Others think you've got to drive it. So someone's going to be right, someone's going to be wrong, but it'll be slow as hell.
Okay.
You'll be there at 4 a.m. Sorry, I'll be there at 4 a.m.
You'll be there. Are you still doing live coverage of the final round, Joe?
The next one.
We kind of do that as like a watch along thing, more so in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Sunday morning.
So you're ignoring the crux of one of the big 4 tournaments of the year, so you can greedily get some sleep, Joseph.
No, I'll be up, and then we'll have a review pod on the Monday morning. So, well, look, Rich, I don't need to tell you all this. You know.
I know.
So, good news. The trend with attendances post-COVID in the League of Ireland is going in one direction.
Yeah, it's smashing this. Attendances in the SSE Electricity Premier Division are up 23% on the same stage last year. 349,867 have passed through top flight turnstiles this season, compared with just over 283,000 at the same number of games last term. The only club not to show an increase are Dundalk, whose attendances have actually fallen by 4% so far this season.
It's very interesting, this, in that for the previous decade or two, and probably forever, people would have said things like, well, unless the league is promoted, unless the league is on TV, unless facilities improve, etc. And all of those things I'm sure still stand to some degree or other, maybe particularly facilities, but attendances won't grow. And in spite of none of those things really happening, Rich, attendances have grown. It's like this kind of underground movement in some ways of if you're all going to ignore the league, we don't care. It's attracting a lot of people nonetheless. Anytime I watch it, I have to say lately, it's become this really technical young man's league as well. I mean, the fare on offer is really good, really watchable now. What's your sense of why it's improved?
I just think generally there's good mood music around it.
Yeah.
Its perception has improved. It's seen as a more real and close to home, enjoyable experience, whereas other sporting endeavours might necessarily not be. Anecdotally, just going through my Instagram on Friday night, you see people who wouldn't ordinarily go to, I see people who wouldn't ordinarily go to football matches at all, pitching up at League of Ireland grounds, and that's Tala, that's Dalymount, it's been Richmond Park, it's been Tolka, it's been down Turner's Cross. There are people going to games that haven't before, and I think that's being reflected in these figures today. And again, it is a better product on the pitch than it has been for the past 10, 15 years, certainly. Again, it's a more tangible, real thing for people than it has been before. Some of the facilities haven't, we have to point to Tala and say some of the facilities have improved again generally across the board, and Dundalk is probably the standout case of that. They haven't, but everybody's kind of seeing the benefit from it, and long may it continue, really. It's all self-fulfilling as well. I always hear about a few of my friends, Bows fans, and geez, it's hard to get a ticket at the moment, it's sold out all the time. You want to be really organised to be going to a game in Dalymount if you're not a season ticket holder, and it's that feeds down. That becomes an exciting thing. Then it becomes like a show in town
that you want to go to. So all of that stuff is important, and it does feel so. Like, I think what's interesting about what you're saying there, Richie, about those stats is actually the second part of it, which is that every club has grown other than Dundalk. Because Cork coming back into the league is going to be a natural bump, and it probably jumps those figures a little bit. But the fact that it's growing everywhere, and the fact that also last year was very positive. This isn't coming. This isn't from a bad year. A bad year, exactly. Yeah,
no, that's true. Joe, no golf. What's the crack? Says the texter. I know this. I was voted down.
Well, you weren't. Well, look, let's not. We're going behind the scenes a lot this week, but that's not true. You won't be on the show though for talking about the golf for the rest of the week. You'll be only on Golf Weekly, so you have to pick a winner right now. Or I'll give you till the end of the news round if you want.
Okay. Lots of texting on bullfighting. James and Mayo. Is what I'm taking from your bullfighting discussion that we want the bull to win more? Certainly without some jeopardy. No, we don't. We'll get into that later. But no, like there was, and it's on YouTube in very full, vivid, high definition camera. There was a matador killed about 10 years ago by a bull. That is not what we want either. It's shocking. What do we want? I don't know. In a perfect world,
maybe we don't see the need for the sport technically, or whatever it is.
To do it without killing the bull or torturing the bull.
Being honest in the moment, if I'm being truly honest about my feelings, I 100% wanted the bull to win for a moment or two. Did I actually want that man to die in front of me? I think that would have been even more traumatic. Of course not. But in the moment when you're seeing this animal being tortured in front of you, you wanted a little bit of fight back.
Holy SH1T, Joe. I never knew any of those details. Horrendously horrific. Not even a fair fight. Jesus, the poor bull. Oh, how brave we are as humans, is a texter. Lads, did you see Jack Grealish is already back in England training? That is some going with the week he's had, says Will in Kildare.
Sorry, did you see when he was like in his full kit? Obviously, maybe everyone see this, just I haven't talked to anybody about it. So it was like the next morning at like, I think it was like 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, broad daylight, sun shining, and the City players are celebrating somewhere. Must have been at the airport or something, and Grealish is like head to toe in his jersey, shorts, his socks, the whole shebang. Like
the one I saw,
flip-flops was the only difference from what he was wearing on the pitch.
Well, the one I saw, and I don't have a timeline on how they packed all this in, but it's morning time and Kyle Walker is helping him. He's in Ibiza. Been like carried out somewhere from a hotel or something.
This might have been the day after.
Well, I don't know when they did the Ibiza thing. I mean, the shots of him where he's got his top off in the rain, where he's got his arms spread like Jesus. I mean, it is iconic.
He does enjoy. He makes Manchester City winning championships slightly more bearable, I have to say, because his celebrations have been iconic for 2 years in a row now.
I did see there was some tweet, a gazillion likes, saying like Manchester City spent 100 million on Jack Grealish to fill the void of the rest of the team when they actually win things. Something to that effect. The answer to increased attendance is simple. Cork City are back in the league, and that's boosting numbers, says Mossy on YouTube. Yeah, we acknowledge that a touch, but I think it is bigger than that, Mossy. You would.
Yeah, no, it is. Like, I have the figures open here. It's like Rovers are up 5%, so they're not even one of the biggest percentage increases. Pats are up 19, Bows up 30, Cork up 24%, Derry up 7, Shells are 5, Sligo 22, Dundalk, as I say, down 4. Drogs, like, they're up 39%. It's 1364 to 1896 on average, and even UCD posting an increase as well, bless them. So yeah, it's across the board. Only 2 clubs in the first division as well, with minus figures in that too. So it's good news all around.
Yeah, not shocked by your next story.
Who called this one, by the way?
Did you?
I might have done. Brendan Rodgers is on the verge of return to Celtic. I know, yeah.
I said that Brendan Rodgers should go to Spurs, and Richie said no, Ange will go to Spurs and Rodgers will go back to Celtic, and this is about, I would say, a month ago.
Okay. Sorry, Rich, go ahead.
The Scottish champions are on the hunt for a new manager, as you mentioned there, following Ange Postecoglou's departure to Tottenham. Rodgers won the treble in back-to-back seasons at Celtic. During his initial reign, he left, of course, for Leicester.
So your story says on the verge. Is this like widely reported this is happening?
Yeah.
Is it? Wow.
Yeah, Guardian came out with it last night, and there's been multiple other well-sourced people who've pretty much said the same. He's apparently pitched a course for them through Europe, and to make them contenders in Europe once again. That's impressed the board there. So how much of that will come true?
So Brendan Rodgers left Celtic, and Celtic in the middle of a treble season. Celtic fans weren't exactly too pleased with it.
True.
I did also read this morning that Leeds possibly have their eye on him and might make a late offer to lure him away from going back to Celtic. I don't think he would be forgiven a second time, would he?
You have to take Celtic over Leeds, don't you? In the Championship?
Yeah, Championship for one season anyway, yeah, but who knows? I don't really care, but I think it would be funny if he if he was on the verge of joining Celtic again, and then
that's Mo Johnston type stuff where he's agreed to go and suddenly pitches up somewhere else. Well, yeah, it looks like it's only gone one way.
Okay. Jude Bellingham then?
He's going to be presented as a Real Madrid player tomorrow. The midfielder has signed a 6-year contract at the Bernabeu as of today, after Real paid Borussia Dortmund €103 million. That figure could reach $134 million based on various add-ons. His brother is also on the move today, with Jobe Bellingham swapping Birmingham City for Sunderland.
Okay. Last couple of stories. So James Milner, and then there's a whole host of Chelsea.
There's all the Chelsea stuff, yeah. Brighton confirming the capture of James Milner today. The 37-year-old was out of contract at Liverpool, where he'd spent the past 8 seasons. Milner's arrival follows the confirmation as well today of João Pedro's signing from Watford even, not Waterford. Arsenal have entered the race to sign Kai Havertz from Chelsea. It's believed the German striker would command a fee of around €80 million. Bayern Munich
80?
Also interested.
Yeah. He's still only young. He's only like 22 or 23, but he's not an £80 million player, I think, for what we've seen.
He's a really classy player. But he's got
a couple of years left in his contract, though, and that's the thing. And Chelsea are looking to recoup. So,
okay,
yeah, you couldn't blame them. Chelsea, meanwhile, have rejected an opening bid of £40 million from Manchester United for midfielder Mason Mount. Meanwhile, Chelsea remain open to allowing Romelu Lukaku return to Inter on loan next season. Lukaku has reportedly rejected an offer from Saudi Arabian club Al Hilal to join them this summer. Inter representatives also want to take Kalidou Koulibaly on loan from Chelsea. And Chelsea have led the tributes today to former player and manager John Hollins, who's died at the age of 76. He made more than 500 appearances for the Blues over 2 spells, managed them as well in the mid-80s, and following a sacking by Chelsea, Hollins played 1 game for Cove Ramblers in 1989 when he was aged 42.
Okay. We are out of time. Richie, thank you.
Listen, lads.
Michael, thank you very much. Victor Hovland.
Your chance to win big.
News Talk's Summer Cash Machine.
Now, if you've entered since 5 o'clock on Tuesday, you're still in the draw, but you must know the new amount, €41,661.43. Text play to 57557. Get your entry in by 3 o'clock tomorrow, and then across the Go Loud network stations, Barry Dunn will make the call. If your phone rings, answer within 5 rings. The exact amount, please, and the cash is yours. So that amount again, €41,661.43, over 18s only. Text cost €2.50, and you're playing across the Go Loud network stations. Terms and conditions on newstalk.com.
The News Round on Off the Ball.
With